Greetings and salutations, my fellow gamers. It is I, the Masked Gamer, and recently I've been watching challenge videos based around the Fallout series. And this was an eventuality given that Fallout is my favorite video game series of all time. And with this influx of Fallout challenge videos came an urge for me to do one of my own. So that's what I'm here to do today. I'm going to find out, can you beat Fallout 4 as the Incredible Hulk? Now the rules for this challenge are simple. I'm basing my build on the Hulk, and will be limited to the abilities that the Hulk and Bruce Banner have. I'll also be making decisions based on what I believe the Hulk or Banner would make in the situation. Now with that out of the way, let's begin. Starting out in the character creator, I did my best to make myself look like Bruce Banner. However, while I was going for a more Mark Ruffalo look, I ended up with my own take on the character. Thankfully, he still ended up as a toothpick. I also gave my wife some Black Widow ginger hair since she will soon have no soul. Once the Vault-Tec representative comes around, I name myself Bruce and select my special stats. At this moment, I'm only Bruce Banner, so I put most of my points in intelligence and perception, leaving everything else low. I just have a feeling I won't be so lucky in a few minutes. After that, the world ends and I'm placed in the cryopod, where I watch Natasha, my wife, get murdered and my son taken. Once out of the pod, I make my way through the vault until I reach the reactor. I then stupidly walk through the center, where a combination of electric radiation and mutant bug bites causes a change within me. Fueled by this energization, I continue my way through the vault and arrive at the entrance. It's at this point I notice I'm now a buff god and my special points have been altered. I'm still intelligent, but my strength has radically increased. After dealing with Codsworth, I decide I need to level up. Taking a trick I've seen from other playthrough challengers, I scrap as much wood as I can from Sanctuary and begin building fence posts. After building over 250 posts, I level up 3 times and choose the perks Iron Fist, Nerd Rage, and Toughness. Since I'm playing as a Hulk, I'm limiting myself to unarmed weapons only, so I'll need perks that increase my melee damage. I'll also be excluding unarmed weapons that do stab, burn, or edge damage, as those aren't abilities Hulk has. Once I was done with that, I headed to Concord to rescue everyone's favorite settlement, Helping Companion. I had a feeling that out of all the factions in Fallout 4, Bruce would more than likely side with the Minutemen. I reach Concord, level up, and raise my luck to 3 so I can eventually get the Bloody Mess perk. I find my way through the museum, talk to Preston, and head out to deal with the raiders. I wasn't too concerned about them, and then the Deathclaw showed up. Despite my best efforts, I simply couldn't defeat the giant lizard, and I realized I'd have to come back when I was stronger, so I loaded back to before I entered Concord and began making my way towards Diamond City. Once there, I went straight for a tour to sell off my useless ammo and bought myself a pair of brass knuckles to improve my damage output. I briefly returned to Sanctuary to level up and take the Rooted perk, as it was the only one I could get that increased my melee attacks. After stopping by Valentine Detective Agency, I headed towards Vault 114 or to save Nick. I was honestly worried about the Triggermen given they have machine guns, but with cannons and constant healing, they weren't too much of a hassle. I leveled up, increased my toughness, and entered Vault 114. I pretty much breezed through the vault, found Nick, and just as quickly headed back to the surface. I didn't even give Skinny Malone a chance to speak before challenging him to fisticuffs. I didn't take too long before Skinny and his goons were dead, and me and Nick could head back to Diamond City. I sold off my accumulated guns and ammo before going back to Sanctuary to upgrade my armor and level up. After that, I caught Nick up on the situation, and we decided to pay a visit to Kellogg's apartment. Since we needed the key and I didn't have much charisma, I decided to do the only honorable thing left: pick the desk and steal the key. Once inside Kellogg's home, I proceeded to loot everything he had before following Dogmeat to Fort Hagen. At this time, I decided to keep Nick along as a companion. I initially decided against using companions, but Hulk has worked with those in the past, and since Nick isn't too far off from Vision, he was fair game. On the way to Fort Hagen, we came across the Yaguai, which was tough enough. However, we were then swarmed by Stingwings, Raiders, and Super Mutants. Needless to say, I died pretty quickly, so I loaded to save and tried again. This time, it was just the Yaguai and Stingwings, so I quickly finished them off. Once we arrived at Fort Hagen, I decided not to go in just yet, and instead decided now was a perfect time to go and rescue Preston. I fast traveled back to Concord, fought through the museum, and talked to Preston before heading outside to deal with the Raiders and Giant Gecko. The Raiders were even easier than last time, so when the Deathclaw came a knockin', I once again hid inside to have the Raiders and Nick chip away at it. Once all the Raiders were dead and Nick was down, I lured the Deathclaw over towards Preston so he could take shots at it. At some point, the Deathclaw lost its tail, and I ended up punching it so hard it flew into the air before falling down dead. I joined Preston back in Sanctuary, where he quickly informed me that a settlement needed my help. Surprisingly, I wasn't sent to 10 Pines Bluff and was instead sent to Overland Station. However, I was still sent to clear the raiders from the Corvega assembly plant. Once I killed all the raiders, we were back in Diamond City to sell all of our accumulated weapons and buy some stim packs. This element agreed to join and I was declared General of the Minutemen. This caused me to level up and I took the medic perk since I was constantly using stim packs. I cleared out another settlement before a person asked me to help another one on the other side of the map. Screw that, I was leveled up, had a companion, and some stronger armor. It was time to face Kellogg. Me and Nick traveled back to Fort Hagen and began fighting our way through the base. As expected, the Sims took a few hits to kill, and quite a lot of healing was needed. I looted everything I could, took a deep breath, and headed to face this guard killer. The fight wasn't as challenging as I thought, but still not a cakewalk. Having to avoid being killed by the Sims while keeping an eye on Kellogg wasn't easy. But with some healing and a little help from Nick, I managed to deliver the final blow, ending the man who killed my wife. I then immediately took his armor as my own. After witnessing the Brotherhood's arrival, it was back to Diamond City to sell my guns and ammo. I then decided now was a good time to complete some more Minutemen quests, starting with the one I put off. But I'd only completed this one mission before Preston decided now was the time to retake the castle. Since I knew I was going to be facing multiple Marlocks and their beloved queen, I knew it was time to upgrade my weaponry. The knuckles had taken me this far, but it was time to smash my way through the rest of the game. At Diamond City, I found a tourist selling a lead-lined boxing glove, which was the best version of it I'm allowed to use. However, this wasn't the weapon I was looking for. I wanted a power fist, but not just any power fist, one that I could take with me to the end of the game. That's right, I wanted Swan's furious power fist. For those who don't know, the Power Fist on the super mutant behemoth Swan has a furious legendary effect, increasing my damage output for each consecutive hit on the same target. This would be invaluable for later in the game and could possibly save me when facing the Marlock Queen. So I head off to Boston Commons and woke the sleeping behemoth. Since he was a much higher level than me, I resorted to the old trick of hiding in a truck and coming out to quickly land a few hits before running back to safety. This back and forth went on for quite a while as me and Nick slowly chipped away at his HP. Eventually a few nearby raiders came to lend a hand, though they didn't last long against Swan, but I finally nailed the killing blow and got my power fist. I tested out on some nearby super mutants who all fell with just one blow. Feeling confident, I began making my way over to the castle. On the way I encountered some gunners and then Mr. Gutsy. I had barely drawn my stim packs when the Mr. Gutsy took me down, but that wasn't a problem. I just avoided him next time and... So after beating Swan for a second time, I took a different route in order to avoid that killer robot. This took me to a group of raiders, where a grenade took me out. Eventually, I was able to fight my way through Boston and finally made it to the castle. Deciding on the pincer maneuver, we moved in fists a-blazing. Since I wasn't alone for this fight, taking down the Marlocks took only a few minutes. I then began the process of stealing/killing their children before a big bomber rose from the sea. And it didn't take long before she vomited all over me, sending me to Davy Jones' locker. This, I'm afraid, turned into a recurring theme, landing a few hits on the queen before falling to her toxic spit. Despite hiding when attacked and using helpful chems, I died to Mrs. Krabs and her Rugrats at least 8 times over the course of an hour. Eventually, with the assistance of Nuke-Cole, Quantum, and Overdrive, I managed to land the finishing blow. I was so full of hatred for her at this point that I happily bashed her skull in 8 times even though she was already dead. And then also destroyed the rest of her nearby eggs for good measure. Now that the Minutemen had their headquarters back, I traveled to Diamond City to continue with the main quest. I met the detective and journalist who told me to head towards Goodneighbor. I then changed taxes again, for whatever reason, and headed to help Abernathy Farm. Once I turned the raiders into jam and returned the locket, I finally headed towards Goodneighbor. Wanting to impress Hancock, I immediately made a show of force by bashing Finn's head in. Anything for you, my man. Talking with Dr. Amari, we realized we needed to hack a dead man's head. So with Nick's help, I entered Kellogg's mind, rushed through the memories, and saw my son killed by vaporization. With the knowledge of Virgil in my head, I went to talk to Nick, where my inner Hulk reared its head again.
I should have killed you when you were on ice.
You want to try for round 2? Let's go!
After calming down, it was time to go take a swim in the glowing sea. I first stopped at Diamond City to buy a hazmat suit from Becky as well as stock up on stim packs. It was then time for the long walk to the glowing sea from Diamond City. When I got to Robotics Pioneer Park, I decided not to battle the Death Claw with just Nick, so I reprogrammed the Protectrons to lay down the law instead. To my complete surprise, the 4 took the Alpha down no time flat, which made me wish I could take these 4 along with me as my own posse. Reaching the glowing sea, I donned the hazmat suit and began smashing my way towards the crater of Adam. It was then time to face another Deathclaw outside the cave, and it only took one try. Okay, maybe two. I then used my smooth talking to convince Virgil to help me, with a promise I'd help him. This got me to level 18 and allowed me to increase my Iron Fist perk. Before heading for CIT, I went to the castle to get some new armor. I headed down to the basement of Ronnie Shaw and we fisted Sarge until he blew up. I looted the general's uniform, which I planned to keep as my end-game armor. Now, in order to complete this quest, I did have to throw artillery grenades, but since I wasn't using them to kill anything, I decided it was okay. After stocking up in Diamond City, I traveled to CIT and followed the signal to Green Tech Gen X. The gunners inside weren't that much of a hassle. Eventually, and I finally made it to the Courser. 6 hits later, the Courser was dead, and I had the chip. After another weapon cell spree at Diamond City, I headed for the Old North Church to enlist help with the railroad. I didn't bother following the Freedom Trail since I already knew the code, and wanted to wrap this up as soon as possible. Once I got the information I needed, I checked in with Virgil and got the relay plans. I got Sturgis to help build the death trap and clenched my behind as I got teleported to the Institute. Now, originally I wanted to reject Father's request so I could jump straight to the ending. However, I felt Bruce would want to cure Virgil of his giant green mutation, so I had to agree in order to get to his lab. I breezed through meeting the head scientist before heading to Virgil's lab. I got the cure, talked to Father about some sweetheart named Libby Talia, and headed off to do some bounty hunting. Since it was on the way, I stopped at County Crossing to see if they needed any help. There was also an Amcat nearby. I only bring this up because I think Amcats are cool. Dig? Libertalia wasn't a hassle, even with the fat man wielding raider taking shots at us. While talking with X6 about recall codes, a raider smacked him in the head before going full Denny Phantom and phasing through the wall. I headed to the top, dealt with the raiders, and then proceeded back to the Institute for my next mission. And it was the big one, the Battle of Bunker Hill. Now that I had Virgil's cure, this would be the turning point to the end of my run. I arrived at Bunker Hill and was ready to run to the Sims without any hassle. However, I found myself an enemy of the Brotherhood of Steel. This was a surprise because usually when I do this mission, I'm on good terms with all the factions. But in this run, I've avoided the Brotherhood and not completed any quests. Therefore, I had to dodge Brotherhood fire as I made my way to the basement. But I was then surprised to learn that I was also an enemy of the Railroad. Once again, this wasn't surprising as I'd ignored the railroad except for the part of the main quest. However, it didn't help that I now had another faction to dodge fire from. Thankfully, with a little bit of running, I managed to reach the Sims, where I then sent X4 to the Cyberverse. And if you're wondering why I didn't do what Hulk would do and fight everyone in the compound, I wanted to avoid making an enemy of the remaining factions. After all, I feel Bruce Banner and Hulk would want the others to live, given the good they do, and overlook the bad. Thankfully, killing X4 puts me on good terms with the railroad, and I can plunder the corpses of the Brotherhood to my heart's content. However, I was worried about being on bad terms with the Brotherhood after this, so I decided to finally go help Paladin Dams with his relay problems. We had proceeded through ArcJet without a problem, and after being accepted into the Brotherhood, I felt confident in continuing the main quest. I did have to stop at Oberland Station first, since they were close to leaving the Minutemen. Meeting with Swan at CIT, I told him I chose freedom over tyranny, and I was promptly banned from the Institute. I told Preston the news and was ready to take the fight to Sean, but I realized I didn't have 8 settlements under my thumb, so I did a few missions to gather the settlements before being called for battle. Heading to the castle, I built up some defenses before the fighting began. Hulk basically took over from here and started smashing away at every synth that looked at me funny. Nothing too drastic, until I saw that Sheffield had been killed. My inner rage exploded, and I had shown no mercy to those freaks of nature. No offense, Nick. I was the constant blur, running all around the castle just to punch these Sims in the face. Towards the end, the fighting got a bit more challenging, mainly due to the number of courses with stealth boys running around. At one point, Sid planted himself on the radio shack, where unfortunately I couldn't reach him. I went ahead and focused on the other Sims, leaving those with guns to deal with the rooftop holdout. Having kicked the Sims' shiny metal asses, it was time to take the fight to the Institute itself. I stopped by Diamond City for my final weapon cell and found Danny Sullivan in some trouble. This was funny because I always thought the quest started after I destroyed the Institute, but I figured I might as well do it while I'm here. Heading up to the mayor's office, I tried talking him down but to no avail, so I rushed forward and bashed his face in. This somehow turned Geneva hostile, and Piper ended up taking her down, but for some reason she then turned on me, forcing a reload to try again. This time I let Piper take Madonna down like she always wanted. However, her rage must have run deep as she then hunted down Geneva. Catfights, am I right? While I was in town, I also placed a Nuka-Cola at Sheffield's old spot as a sign of respect for falling in battle. Rest in peace, my friend. Traveling to CIT, I channeled my inner Ninja Turtle by crawling through the sewers and fighting killer mutants. But things went fully screwed when I came across a laser turret mounted on the ceiling. Unable to reach it with my power fist, I unfortunately died very quickly. The second time I had Nick try to take it out with his pistol. Nick wasn't very accurate though, so it took a few stim packs before he could take it down. Finally, I made it to the relay and brought my boys in to do some damage. We fought our way to the Institute where I knocked out as many turrets as possible. I wasn't able to stop all of them though, and ended up running quite a few times to save my skin. Hey, even Hulk ran from Thanos. This rampage of rotten destruction continued once I reached the bioscience division, even though Sims gorillas weren't a match for me. I wasn't about to get my cheeks clapped by monkeys. The fighting continued in the main hall, where thankfully there were only a few lightly armored Sims. Putting it off for long enough, I headed for the director's room to talk with Swan. Since my charisma was so low, I couldn't convince him to help me. Thankfully, I snatched his terminal password before I left for Bunker Hill. I cancelled the lockdown, issued the evacuation order, and took one last look at my son before heading off to the reactor. I encountered some turrets I could finally punch, then took a few chems so I'd be at the top of my game. The Institute scientists were toothpicks that went down with one blow. The biggest challenges were the legendary Sims and wall turrets. Thankfully, Nick was there to deal with the turrets while I handled the Sims. Placing the pulse charge on the reactor, I was relayed back to Sturgis, where I decided to have sympathy on the child synth. Hey, I couldn't just leave him there. I'll save that for when I beat Fallout 4 as a Sith Lord. With one last flash of light, I relayed to Mass Fusion, pressed the big red button, and watched the Institute meet its end. This ended the game, and proved that you can in fact beat Fallout 4 as the Incredible Hulk. This was a very fun playthrough to try, as I'd never attempted to use unarmed weapons in a playthrough. I'll be honest though, I feel like I could have done a better job at selecting my special stats. If I did something like this again, I'd want to change my stats to reflect the perks I want, not the type of character I'm playing. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been Can You Beat Fallout 4 as the Incredible Hulk, and everything has been wrapped up nicely. Though I can't help but feel like I've forgotten something. I'm sure it's nothing. I'll probably forget about it with a little post-battle loot
And what about the serum? Did you find the serum?
Got it right here.
That's it. That's really it.
I'm a good person.